Good evening, Harrisburg School District. We want to welcome you to a special presentation from our Superintendent, Mr. Eric Turman, as he shares his vision for reshaping the lives of Harrisburg School District students. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, I'd like to introduce to some and present to others our Superintendent of the Harrisburg School District, Mr. Eric Turman.
Thank you, Kirsten, and welcome to all who had an opportunity to join us this evening. My presentation is not going to take very long. I've kind of been on tour at this point, and this is my last stopping point where I've had an opportunity to share the potential vision of where the Harrisburg School District could go. So we wanted to make sure, as being as transparent as possible, that we share the plan and the vision with all stakeholders, but also the entire community. So that everybody says, hey, you know what? I have an idea and a sense of where the Harrisburg School District is going. So full transparency as we definitely try to reshape and move forward and create a better Harrisburg for our students. So we're gonna start the presentation now. ESSER 3 is a one-time funding source. And this one-time pot of money is for all districts to three-prong approach. Is one, how are you going to prevent kind of the spread of COVID? How are you going to prepare for the learning loss and respond to it as well? So those are the three main topics that districts must have a response to in terms of how they are going to take life-changing money, which is really what it is, to be able to reshape your district and to be able to come out of this pandemic better than when you entered. And that's really what the goal is as we move forward. So the agenda tonight is to provide a background and explain the impact of COVID, examine needs, propose the use of ESSER 3 funds in response to COVID-related needs, communicate the plan for stakeholder feedback, and then collect your feedback via Google form, which will be on the website starting tomorrow. COVID-19, I'll give you some of the background. March of 2020, I think we all remember when the announcement came that we were shutting down schools across the Commonwealth and almost across the country as well. So that was the onset of the pandemic. It was the middle of March. And at that point in time, for most districts, it was probably about a month or so later where the remote learning began. Take that, move that forward for last school year in the Harrisburg School District and in most of your urban school district, remote learning continued. And for the most part, it continued for the remainder of the year. Harrisburg did have in-person instruction for all kids who were in K-2, but that was only for the last 2 months and some change of the school year. Fast forward to this year, everyone came back to in-person learning. And then we'll discuss some of the concerns we've had as our students have returned back to school. So what has the impact been on Harrisburg? Well, what we're going to talk about soon is an achievement gap that has widened. Definitely the mental health and social-emotional needs of our students and our families as well. Health and safety concerns in terms of COVID and COVID-related impact and how that impacts school and our community as well. The strain that you've definitely seen on family supports and definitely leading to the financial instability for families where the impact COVID has had on them financially within the Harrisburg community. One of the biggest impacts and something that is that's troubling, and it's really how are we going to respond to it, is the impact on our youngest scholars. I'm getting ready to show you some data where it's a concern for our young people and what's going on with them right now. So in 2019, 36% of the kids who entered kindergarten were significantly below level. You fast forward after almost a year and some change of students not being able to get into pre-K or into any daycare, that has now ballooned into 58% of our students are significantly below level entering kindergarten. And that's in math. Then if you look at reading, before the pandemic, it was about 61% were entering and significantly below level. Then you fast forward 2021, now you're talking about almost 80% of our youngest learners are significantly below grade level. So what are we going to do to respond to that? We're going to have conversation about reopening Steele Elementary School. If we reopen Steele Elementary School, that will give us an opportunity to move 520 students and also have the ability to open up 26 classrooms. Cougar Academy and HVLA expansion. Central office right now is located in the Lincoln building. If we relocate central office to another building, which I will talk about later, we will open up the opportunity for roughly 320 students, an additional 16 classrooms. And now you're talking about definitely being able to offer kindergarten here and then start the application process for also opening up pre-K. So what's the impact on Steele and Lincoln? One, the future of Harrisburg will be to have one pre-K at each site at each elementary school. And then for us to coordinate and work very closely with all of our Head Start programs in Harrisburg. A K-4 class size reduction, reduce the number of students in K-4 classrooms. And then we're going to transition into 5th grade, the potential of bringing 5th grade students back to elementary school. So strengthening the 5th grade experience. If we ended up bringing 5th grade back to elementary, and we would call that the elementary restructuring, here's what it does for us as a district. A, our curriculum in the district is K-5, so we'd definitely be able to strengthen that. Structure, your 5th grade students now would have more structure back in elementary school than they do in secondary. And then we're going to talk about 2 other buckets, relationships and a positive environment. Your 5th grade students now will still be able to have those relationships they have with their teachers in an elementary setting compared to a secondary building, and be able to have a positive environment to nurture students who, quite frankly, are probably a little bit too young to be in a middle school environment. So just to kind of give you what we're getting ready to talk about is for you to understand achievement versus growth. Achievement is the same goal for everyone, and that's your proficiency. So if the goal is for all 3rd grade students to achieve at this level, doesn't matter who the student is, they must achieve at that level. Growth is based on the individual, where they're at and where you take them to. So we're going to be talking about 2 sets of data throughout the course of this presentation, achievement and growth. So if you start to dig into 5th grade data and you start to look at attendance, your attendance for 4th grade students is 89. 4th grade students, 89%. 1 year later, it goes down to 84. When you look at suspension data, 4th graders, 2 students have been suspended. 5th grade jumps up to 21, 1 grade level difference. Let's look at some cohort data of our 5th grade learners over the past 3 years before the pandemic. So if you take the cohort 1, when those students were in 4th grade, all right, they were well above what was asked in terms of their growth, okay? So they achieved higher than they were projected to achieve. The next year, that dropped all the way to well below, all right? So, okay, let's see, was it just that year, or was that an anomaly, or what was that? Next year, 4th grade students in 4th grade, well above again. As 5th grade students, they're down to meets. Next year, as 4th grade students, they're well above. And as 5th grade students, they're well below. So you're looking at these 3 data points, and all of them, when you start talking about the triangulation of data, all of them point to, we have some concerns when you have 5th grade students in the environment they're currently in. So we talked about elementary school. We talked about pre-K. We talked about opening up Steele. We talked about what that could do. We talked about bringing 5th grade back, okay? So those are kind of your buckets, K-5, pre-K to 5. Now let's shift to middle school, and let's talk grades 6 to 8. So currently, for middle school, you have Camp Curtin, you have Roland, you have Marshall Math Science Academy, and the discussion of bringing back William Penn. So a middle magnet school concept for grade 6 to 8. So how do you re-engage our mid-level student? Because that's where you start to see us as a district losing students. So how do we engage students at that age to keep them interested in learning and keep them interested in school and keep them interested in their future? Let's go after them at a young age. So if you start to think through a magnet school concept, one of the things this would do is it would not matter where you live in the city of Harrisburg. You would have choice about which magnet school you wanted your student to attend. With that choice, students now have a sense of belonging. So if it's a magnet school for finance and leadership, and I'm a 6th grade student, and that's really what I'm passionate about, and that's really what I engage in, now I have a sense of belonging when I'm there. Then you also have it's relevant. So this is relevant to me because this is something really that I'm passionate about and what I want to be part of. And then you now have the rigor that goes along with that that's needed in order for that student to be successful. And all of these things are preparing our students for 21st century skills. There's 20 open acres of land at William Penn and 28 total acres. So how do we recapture the history and reimagine it for the future? So the former William Penn, as we know right now, is shuttered and closed. How would we look at opening up William Penn for this intent and purpose, opening it up for a magnet school? Now, I know the history of William Penn in terms of what it was. The good thing about this concept is there's so much land at William Penn that this, for right now, is where we're looking to really go after over the next few years. But there's enough land at William Penn that if we wanted to aggressively do something down the road and at a later time, we would have enough land to do so. So for right now, we're talking about taking William Penn and making it into a magnet school for our 6th to 8th grade learners. Then you start to look at your middle school data. So if I go over here with attendance, in 4th grade, I'm at 89%. But after I get out of 4th grade, you'll see it start to drop. 84, 84, 84, 80. You start looking at your reading and math data. 5th grade, I'm at 15%, 14, 9, 12, and 10. Math, 15, 17, 13, 15, and 15. And then you start looking at number of students suspended. 2 goes to 21, up to 78, down to 48, and then back up to 53. So that's your middle school in a nutshell in terms of where we are currently right now. So we talked pre-K to 5th grade. We talked grades 6 to 8. Now we're going to shift to high school and beyond. So you have John Harris, Cougar Academy for some students, and then you also have SciTech. All right. So when it comes to the graduation rate, SciTech's graduation rate has, for the most part, been 100% since its inception. But if you look at John Harris started at 49, went up to 59, 55 to 59 to 61 to 65. So there has been an increase in their graduation percentage over the past 4 or 5 years. Now, it's very critical and key for everybody to understand what that means. That does not mean that the other 35% of the students dropped out of school. What that means is 65% of the kids graduated in 4 years. There are some kids who will graduate in 5 years, some kids who will graduate in 6, okay? So people kind of get the conception that that means 35% of the kids dropped out, and that's not factual. What that means is 65% of the kids graduated within a 4-year band. Then you look at their dropout percentage, 9, 12, 10, 6, and 7. So those are your 2 data sets when you're looking at the John Harris campus. College and career academies for all students, okay? So we already have 1 career academy at SciTech. How would we create 3 other academies, which would be housed at the John Harris campus? So for a 9th grade student, no matter which school they go to, career exploration in 9th grade, which would lead to that student in 10th and 11th grade to have an opportunity to see what it means for post-secondary for that student, to get career experiences, and then also job shadowing. And then that rolls into 12th grade for all high school students, an opportunity for dual enrollment, internships, and co-op. Think about this. if we had an opportunity to be able to develop a plan that by the time they left here as seniors, that a good portion of our students had their first year of college done and paid for, what a benefit that would be for our students, our families, and our community. And that potentially would be the goal as we move forward. And that would be for all students who attend either campus. So dual enrollment, internships, co-op would be where you want all seniors to get to as we move our plan forward. So we talked pre-K and kindergarten, we talked grades 6 to 8, we've talked high school. Now we're going to talk about our community and meeting their needs. The Harrisburg School District Resource Center, the relocation of central office to the Paxton building, which is currently now called the Business Journal. So you now have this resource center, and we're going after 3 buckets. Bucket number 1 is a welcome center. So how do we welcome all families to Harrisburg? When we know in our district, there's 32 countries represented, 22 different languages. And then how do we help folks who are new to Harrisburg navigate the city and then help them with the support that's needed for them to be successful and also their child? District administrative support. The administration building will be all on the same floor for the most part. And at that point in time, it will be the Office of Superintendent, Student Services, Family Engagement. So when you would come and need someone, you would be able to come to one location and one floor and be able to get exactly the person you needed to help you and your child. And in the Resource Center, how do we provide families with the resources that are needed in order for everyone to be successful? So if I'm a parent and I know I need help for my child, or I know I need help for myself, I know I can go to the Resource Center in that building and there's somebody there who's going to help me and help my child. And that's really what it's about. How do we help the families in the Harrisburg School District and in the city of Harrisburg? So, talked about the Resource Center. Now we're going to talk about social emotional learning. So when you talk about social emotional learning, you're not talking about self-awareness, relationship skills, self-management, social awareness, and responsible decision-making. And this is something right now that our young scholars are struggling with. So the district has already moved forward with this, where part of the MTS framework in terms of how we support students, there's tier 1, 2, and 3 supports. Tier 1, in terms of us bringing on effective school solutions, would be that we would be able to support teachers and be able to support families in that tier 1 support. Tier 3 would be us going after the students who need some really intensive help. So students who are really struggling emotionally and socially each and every day, we would have clinicians who would be available to help those who are and have the most need in the district. So what's our timeline? All right, what are the actionable items that if this is approved for our ESSER funding, then you could hold the district to? 21-22 school year. Apply for the grant, which we will do by week's end next week. 2, which we are already working on, have a feasibility study currently to see if we can bring 5th grade back next year. Start to talk about the magnet school focuses and examining what the curriculum for those would be. And then obviously, once we're approved, we are now going to prepare for construction on William Penn and Steele Elementary School. Throughout the course of next year, start our construction projects, revamp curriculum to support the magnet schools and the career academies, and we need to start the application process for pre-K. Following year will be the continuation of those projects, the continuation of revamping the curriculum, and then opening up potential additional pre-K classrooms. And that 24-25 school year, welcome to the Burg. Steele Elementary is on point. William Penn and the additional magnet schools is ready to go. Career Academy and HVLA expansion is done here. Pre-K and all elementary schools. High school career academies and post-secondary success for all of our high school students. And a resource center which will support all students and families in our city. So the total ESSER funding that we're talking about here is in 3 buckets. So ESSER 1 was about $4.5 million. Then you went up to ESSER 2, which was about $25 million. Then you also had a set aside, which was a little bit less than $4 million. Then the big bucket is ESSER 3, which once again, we will have that application in within the next week. That is $50 million. So you're talking about $83 million that when you step away from this must be life-changing for this community that we serve. So kind of bring it back from where we started. How's the achievement gap that widened? How are we going to tackle that? Pre-K in all buildings, fifth grade support, moving them back to an elementary school, magnet school concept for middle school students, and in career readiness. For our mental health and social emotional needs, SEL for tier 1 and tier 3 students, the resource center for all of our families. Health and safety concerns, how are we going to support that? Opening up William Penn and Steele, expanding Cougar Academy, HVLA, smaller class sizes, K-8. And then the resource center for all of our families. The strain on families in terms of their support, once again, it's going to stick with that resource center. And then financial instability. Dual enrollment, which would save families for college tuition. Co-op for our high school seniors, which would be able to help support that student who, number one, wants to get some experience in the workforce, but then number two, we have some students where them working is a need. So being able to have that opportunity for our students who are at the high school level. And then once again, going back to that resource center, which will support all of our families. So what's the plan for the stakeholder feedback? One is to present and gather all feedback. So this is the last presentation I need to make here in terms of what the potential plan is. We are going to analyze the results from all of our sessions and the surveys, and then we are going to share those results to all of our stakeholder groups. So you kind of see, here's the plan that was put in place, but here's the feedback in terms of how we're going to move this forward. So I definitely want to thank everyone for coming in tonight for, I get that done in 20 minutes. But once again, we just want to be as transparent as possible so that everybody knows what the potential plan can be and everybody knows where we are taking this. All right. So I just want to be very clear in terms of what the goal is so everyone's aware, here's what we're thinking as we're going to move the district forward. So there is going to be a link that you'll be able to jump on tomorrow. And there's a Google document that you'll be able to jump on in a survey, where if you want to give us some feedback in terms of what you're thinking for the presentation, you are more than welcome to. We welcome all feedback as we get ready to submit this grant in order to move the city of Harrisburg and this district forward. So I thank you all for coming out for 20-25 minutes. And I hope I provided you enough information so you have an idea of where we're taking the district as we move forward. So I thank you.
Mr. Turman, we've had lots of feedback online. What are 3 key takeaways that you want our school community to take away from this vision of how you're going to reshape our district for the success of our students? Three key takeaways that you want the community to have.
You know, if I had to do 3 key takeaways, one is really to academically start to move forward where from pre-K to 12, there's a plan with how we're moving kids through our system. All right. So there was not one area we did not look at when we created our plan. So it is from pre-K, and when I say pre-K, we are even going to look at, kids in daycares at earlier ages and how we can support them and partner and work together. So you're talking about kids as young as 2 or 3, all the way up till they're out the door. So that's bucket 1. Bucket 2 is, how do we help a city and support a city when you need help? And that's bucket number 2, is that as a district, I personally feel it's our responsibility and obligation to help our parents and help our community, because the more we help folks in the Harrisburg community, the more the students are going to be successful. So as a parent, if you're struggling with something, we want to make sure you have the resources necessary for you to be successful, because if you are successful, so will your children be. And if there's bucket number 3, really how do we get to a point where we write a different narrative for this city? Mm-hmm. Because unfortunately, I've been here for 5 months, and within that time, I've heard some things in terms of the district didn't do this and that. And how do we get to a point where we're going to let go of the past and what happened, and we're going to focus on the future? Because I really believe that you can let your past become your future if you're going to focus on your past. But if we focus on the future and what we can do moving forward, we can become very strong and partner together and work together and do what's best for all students. So if I had to take 3 things that I would put out there and say, here's what I want your takeaways to be, it would be, we really looked at every child. We really want to be a partner and a resource for you. And how do we write a different narrative and it's something separate of what people feel in the community and even outside?
In the immediate sense, Mr. Turman, what can our school community, including our employees, our families, the community, what can they do right now to support you and our district in moving this vision forward?
To be very honest with you, the best thing you can do is to make sure that we keep open communication and we keep open lines of communication. Because once again, this is not my plan. When I was very clear with that from day one, this is our plan. The only thing I think I provided was kind of a vision for it, but this is something as we move this forward, there's going to be opportunities for everyone to have some input in what we want to do. So there's going to be these opportunities that come up when we talk about the 4 magnet school concepts, where it's not going to be something where I'm going to drive that. We're going to open that up to be able to see what is something that would interest our youngest learners. So, what probably thinking about the 3rd, 4th, 5th graders is what would be of interest to them. So I'm a 3rd grade student. By the time we're ready to roll this magnet school concept out, I'm now going into 6th grade. What would interest you? Because our decisions have to be driven by what we hear from children and not us as adults. Because at the end of the day, the students decline. So the more we work and partner to have a good relationship and you can listen to that student voice, the more we will be able to make decisions and our students will be successful, because that's what we all signed up for.
So in that same vein, as we position ourselves to really listen to the voices of students, can you go back to what is the significance and importance of responsible decision-making on behalf of our students?
Yeah, when it comes to that responsible decision-making, right now we have students because of this pandemic that are struggling socially with how they're interacting. That's probably the best way for me to say it. So, you are seeing student behavior now that I have not seen in 24 years of being in education. And the unfortunate part, a lot of that has to do with what our children have endured over the past year and a half. So how are we able to reshape that and remold students to the point where we can get them to be responsible for their actions, but then also see the light at the end of the tunnel in my future? There's things in Harrisburg that, you wrestle with. And, I wrestled with a report that came out a couple of weeks ago. It was a big to-do in the news. And what it talked about is it said, here are the top 50 cities per capita in terms of the murder rate. And boom, what's number 8? The city that I work for and the city that our families live in. So you wrestle with that due to the fact that you don't want that to be the narrative. So you want to create a different narrative. You want children to see that there are other opportunities other than that there are opportunities that they can have, that they can do something positive with their life other than that. So all the trauma that our young children have gone through and some of the things that you see and some of their interactions with their peers and what they're doing, how do we get our children to see the light at the end of the tunnel and to get excited about school, get excited about learning, and have an opportunity to say, you know what, if I do this, I might be able to do that, and have the sky be the limit for all of our kids.
Well, I think that's a great point to end on, that the sky is the limit for our children individually and collectively. The sky is the limit for the Harrisburg School District. And Harrisburg, we want you to get on board with Superintendent Turman and this phenomenal vision that he's laid out for you this evening. Online on our website, you'll find a survey that we want you to go to immediately. As soon as this is over, go to that survey and share your insights, your input, your thought, your ideas. Let us know what you're thinking so that you can be part of the vision and the great things that are happening here in the Harrisburg School District. So Superintendent Turman, I'm going to turn it over to you to give the last word to our Harrisburg School District community.
And thank you. And I do want to thank Mrs. Keys and also Mr. Nornholt for helping me out with this. It was kind of their concept to run with this evening. And I kind of just jumped on the ship and, they were able to steer me in the right direction. Because when it comes to technology, something I get a little nervous about. So I definitely want to thank the two of them for their help and support this evening and moving this forward. The last thing I would say is that I really wholeheartedly hope that all of you can see and say there's hope for our students. The one word that I really, if I have to sum it all up and everything, I want you to walk away from this and say, okay, there's hope. Because there is hope. If we all work together and not against each other, but together, there is hope for our students and for this city. So I just need you to believe that. First thing we have to do is believe. Because if we never believe, then we'll never get there. So I thank you for your time this evening.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. And there you have it. So Mr. Turman, thank you. And we want to also thank our multimedia and IT team, Mr. Adam Nornhold, Mr. Sean Oliveira. Thank you for making this platform possible. And to you, Harrisburg, thank you so much for joining us. Take care, have a good evening, and happy holidays.